we are bringing you must-keep stashes, players that you should not be selling in Dynasty. We're going to bring you 2 players each, guys that we think could have much better careers in the future, and it's the wrong time to sell or to cut them from your team. So we're going to bring you 2 players each. Okay, I'll go first. My first player is Jordan Love.
Come on.
A quarterback that no one is really talking about.
No.
So he was drafted by the Packers in the 2020 draft. They moved up into that draft to take him in the first round. He sat all of 2020 to 2021. Didn't play a single snap, wasn't the backup. And then this last season served as a backup after the Aaron Rodgers holdout debacle, if you will. He played in a couple games this year, some good, some bad.
Yeah.
He had his first start versus the Kansas City Chiefs in week 9. He was 19 of 34, 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Showed some flashes in the air and on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, I went back and reviewed every throw he made, every snap that he took for both of these games I'm about to talk about. And I can see, again, why they spent a first-round pick on Jordan Love. I love the potential I saw in his gameplay in these 2 games. Now, he played pretty well versus Kansas City. Have to keep in mind with the context, he didn't take any first-team snaps until that week. I mean, you have to build chemistry with the team.
Yeah.
He played the second half versus Detroit in week 18. The second half, they sat all their starters. He was 10 of 17, 134 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. The stats don't look good, but there is always context, okay?
Right.
The first interception that Jordan Love threw in this game was a perfect ball to Amari Rodgers on a slant pass. And Amari literally bounced it off his hands and just gave it to the defender. Like, it was one of the worst drops I saw this year, which led to an interception. That wasn't Jordan Love's fault. The second interception, it was his fault. There was pressure. You know, the offensive line, the starters weren't in there, but there was pressure in his face. He threw off his back foot. His feet weren't planted. And that is something that he does need to work on. However, we have to keep in mind, in this game versus Detroit, he's playing with second and third stringers, like a weird combo of guys. And honestly, after watching this film, I was impressed. And I thought to myself, what could he look like if he had an entire season to prep to be the starter for this team? Or for another team? What would happen if he had that chemistry with the players around him? And it led me to remind myself, how did we fall in love with this guy as a prospect in the first place? Let's go back to the draft.
Yeah.
Because we've only seen him play in 2 games. So a lot of the things that we loved about him, we can still go back to the draft and relive that, okay? Let's not forget why he was drafted in the first round. Broke out super young as a sophomore for Utah State, threw 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, has that 6'4" body, massive arm, makes the off-rhythm throws, has the mobility to extend plays, to run for the first down, to get out of the pocket, has all the intangibles to be a superstar.
Yeah.
By the way, in a class with Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua, and Jalen Hurts, every analyst labeled him the highest upside of any quarterback in that class. Now, is he ever going to be as good as Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert? Probably not. Probably not. Like, at this point, I think it's safe to say he's probably not going to be, because those guys are superstars.
Yeah.
But you can see the upside. It's still there. The upside hasn't left.
No.
He's still that player. Number 2, you can't put a price on learning behind Aaron Rodgers. Okay?
Right.
For 2 years, he has sat behind Aaron Rodgers. Who did that work out really well for? Well, Aaron Rodgers himself, sitting behind Brett Favre. I cannot see how, if Rodgers comes back and he spends another year learning under Aaron Rodgers, one of the most talented quarterbacks the NFL has ever seen, I don't see how that's going to hurt his growth as a quarterback.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
At the end of the day, think about it. If Aaron Rodgers comes back, he'll probably be the backup again this year. But at some point, we will see Jordan Love with a chance to be a starting quarterback somewhere. If it's not in Green Bay and they sign him to like a 2 or 3 year contract, whatever that looks like, Aaron Rodgers, then maybe he does request a trade. He will get a shot somewhere to be a starting quarterback, because we're not talking about Jordan Love, the 30-year-old who the Taylor Heineke who's 27, 28, trying to find his shot. We're talking about Jordan Love, who is 23 years old.
Right.
He is 23 years old.
He's so young.
He was a first-round pick. He will get a chance to lead an NFL team. And to me, I see enough intangibles on film and I see enough good to see how he could fix the bad. And I love Jordan Love as a talent. I love him as a buy low at this point, but he is one of my biggest stashes. I have him on a couple of dynasty teams, and people approach me every time there's Aaron Rodgers, questions or rumors. Hey man, Jordan Love, you look at him. No, he's staying on my team. He will stay on my bench for as long as it needs to be.
That's crazy.
Because there's enough talent there for me to wait. I do think he has top 15 potential. He could mold into that type of quarterback, and that's very valuable in a dynasty superflex league.
I agree.
So for me, it makes almost no sense to sell Jordan Love at this point. I am stashing him. However, if I am buying, I would send a mid to late 2022 second in order to acquire Jordan Love. And I think that's higher than what most crowdsources websites will tell you need to pay. So I think a late second could get it done. When I look at this 2022 class, if we were to put Jordan Love in this 2022 class, this is an interesting conversation.
Okay.
But for me, there's only one quarterback that has a higher upside than him and that I would draft over
Jordan Love
in this year's draft, and that's Malik Willis.
Right.
So keep that into mind when you're trying to justify it if it's worth sending a mid 2022 second.
Okay.
To me, I would draft Jordan Love over everyone except for Malik Willis in this class if I was an NFL team. So that's my first player. Who's yours?
Look, first of all, I love Jordan Love. I have him in multiple leagues. No one's getting him off me because I know I don't think Aaron Rodgers, at least the expectation of him not coming back. Anyways, my first player to keep, in my opinion, that you guys should stash away is Noah Gray. And maybe you guys don't know who this guy is. He's a tight end for who? The Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, the tight end position is so hard to really, solidify. It's so inconsistent in fantasy, especially in fantasy. And the tight end position is hard to get. You don't want to spend the thought process is you don't want to spend a top 5 pick in Dynasty unless it's for one of these top guys, a Kelsey, Mark Andrews. Even then, these guys are getting on the older side. Noah Gray. Look, if you really want to set yourself up for the future, this is a guy you should be investing in or see if you can get. Maybe he's still on your waiver wires because people don't really have him. Okay.
Right.
In my opinion,
he's definitely a taxi squad guy at this point.
Yeah, 100%. This is more of like a long exaggerated because we don't know what's going to happen with Travis Kelce. But what we do know is that he's sitting behind Travis Kelce right now, one of the best tight ends in the National Football League and in fantasy, with one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League and in fantasy and Patrick Mahomes. Okay, so once Travis Kelce, when or if Travis Kelce gets injured, retires, then Noah Gray is the guy. Noah Gray is the next one to step up. And it's the same exact build. I think Noah Gray is 6'4". I think Travis Kelce is like 6'4", I think 6'5"-ish as well. They are the exact same build, and they can do the exact same things. He just needs to learn from Travis Kelce.
Right.
Okay? And what's the value? What am I trying to get?
You're saying he can become Travis Kelce. He's not that player right now.
Exactly. Okay. He can become him, but doesn't mean you never know what can happen. Yeah. The moment right now, I think you can agree, Patrick Mahomes can make anyone fantasy relevant.
Totally. And you have to keep in mind, when Kelce came into the league, he wasn't relevant for a while.
Exactly.
It took him a while to really learn the nuances of the tight end position. So, sorry, continue.
Yeah, so like I said, once Travis Kelce or if Travis Kelce gets injured or retires, then Noah Gray skyrockets. He can be a top 5 tight end in the league. We know that this offense is ran through Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. There's no doubt that he will get that workload. We didn't see much of that in 2020, 2021, purely because Travis Kelce was balling. He was doing his thing.
Yeah.
So for me, at a price that I'm looking for Noah Gray is, why would I sell a 4th for a guy that could be a top 5, top 10 tight end in the next 2 to 3 years? Why not keep him on your taxi squad where it doesn't hurt? Why not try to pick him up off of waiver wires if he is available? Maybe when waiver wires open up for you guys, depending on how that works for you, pick up Noah Gray and just hold him. See what happens. Travis Kelce is 33, 32 years old. He only has 2 or 3 more years, and after that, I think it's all Noah Gray's.
Yeah, and I love Noah Gray's film from college as well. He kind of proved what he could do in the NFL if he wants to reach that potential. I have Noah Gray, and I agree. He is a fantastic hold. However, I'm not certain that he's going to be guaranteed to be relevant. But that's okay. Do you know what I mean? That's okay because you You don't have to pay anything for him,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to get rid of him. There's no risk,
Yeah.
in this scenario. But you know what I'm saying? It wouldn't surprise me if Kelsey retires at some point and then they draft a different tight end or they sign a different tight end in free agency. However, I think you and I can both agree, and we're on the same page here, where we see the potential for Noah Gray to be very fantasy relevant.
Yeah, 100%.
Not that I don't know that he's guaranteed, but I agree he could be very, very fantasy relevant. All right. My second player is Curtis Samuel. Okay. Yes, I'm a Washington fan. Do I like the Commander's name? No. Am I excited about Dan Snyder still being here? No. Do I think about him leaving every single day and it would be better than winning a Super Bowl? Yes. Let's talk about Curtis Samuel. Okay.
Wow. That was huge. You literally just said you'd rather have Dan Snyder out than win a Super Bowl.
Honestly, that would be like a Super Bowl for us. Let's be realistic. That would be a Super Bowl for us.
It could happen.
Anyway, Curtis Samuel, 4 seasons in Carolina, signed with Washington in 2021. Injury plagued all of last year. But things can get better. Things can get better for Curtis Samuel. This is the floor for Curtis Samuel this year. He has proven that he can produce in Carolina. In 2019, he had 54 receptions on 105 targets, over 600 yards and 7 total touchdowns, 19 carries in that year, finished as the wide receiver 36. In 2020, 77 receptions, 850 yards, 5 total touchdowns, and 41 carries out of the backfield.
Sheesh.
Wide receiver 24. So, in my eyes, what do I think that he could do again? No, he's not going to be a top 15 wide receiver. But I do think he can repeat his 2020 year. I think he can be a top 24 wide receiver, which is a good flex for you in Dynasty going forward. By the way, money talks, guys. No GM wants to sign someone to a long-term contract, big money, and then go back and just say, you know what, we screwed up. We're not going to use them for the rest of this contract. No, they want to prove and show people why they spent money on him. Washington signed him to a 3-year, $34 million contract in 2021. And by the way, he'll only be 28 by the time that contract is over. Like, this is still such a young player. He will only be 28 after this next contract.
Right.
There's been no serious concerns of injury in his past, not in college. In 4 seasons before he came to the Washington football team, he only missed 8 games. There was no real injuries that were of major concern. Let's talk about the injury he had last year, which was a groin injury. Some injuries you can play through.
This just lingers.
Some injuries you can play through. In others, you have to give more than enough time that's even necessary in order to fully recover. And that is the groin injury. The groin injury that he had, whether it was him, whether it was the training staff, he was pushed back too early. And once you tweak it again, like, it is so easy to tweak that injury if it's not fully recovered. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that he missed all the entire year. Now with an entire offseason, I believe he will be back at full strength. It's not that you can't recover from it. It's just that it takes more time than most injuries that you tweak. And the last thing I'll say is this kind of speed that Curtis Samuel has, this speed kills. I mean, this is the type of speed that GMs dream about with their wide receiver core. The combination of Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, and Ryan Fitzpatrick, that really, really excited Scott Turner, our offensive coordinator, going into last year. The same offensive coordinator that utilized Curtis Samuel in Carolina. He was his offensive coordinator as well in Carolina.
Right.
So in my opinion, Scott Turner is patiently waiting to show us why he asked his team to sign Curtis Samuel in free agency last year. And if Washington truly does take a big swing at quarterback this offseason, like they're alluring to the fact that they will do, that would be massive.
It could be big
for Terry and Curtis's
100%.
value. And by the way, if it's Jimmy G, I will puke. I will literally puke if I see that trade.
Get Jimmy there.
But even if it's as bad of a swing as Jimmy G can make a player like Curtis Samuel relevant. Like that type of player. That's a multiple, can do it in many different ways. So
type guy, yeah.
I don't think it's worth trading Samuel right now. Like right now, you can maybe get a 3rd round pick for him.
Okay.
So for me, he's a guy you have to stash. Still a young player. We have seen proven production, and it's going to get better from here on out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. I think a guy that can potentially take away from Curtis Samuel could be De'Ami Brown if you want to trade for him. But no pressure.
Sure.
No pressure.
Yeah, I mean, look, De'Ami Brown's a great asset, but there's not enough weapons to take away targets from Samuel, in my opinion.
All right, my last and final player here is Joshua Palmer, 25 Fab Palmer. There was a little joke when someone dropped him on waivers. I put 25 Fab in, and everyone was making fun of me because everyone's bid was $1 or $1 Fab, $2 Fab, and I overpaid for him. But I'm willing to overpay because this is why. Okay, obviously drafted in the third round, the 2021 draft, immediately jumped into some action. He went behind the depth charts with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Jalen Guyton. He's all there, but they got into the rotation really fast. You saw some work with Justin Herbert onto the field in 2021, and the thought process is for 2022 is that if Mike Williams does leave and they don't re-sign him, he's taking over Mike Williams' position. And he is a completely different guy from Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a go-up, contested catch type of guy. He can do those. He can still do that. I don't think he has the body frame for that. He's 6'1", but he does have the speed. But I think he'll be more of like a slant guy, out routes type guy, a guy that can be very consistent for Justin Herbert. Okay, and the biggest thing, the biggest question is, when is Mike Williams going to leave? That's what you have to wait on. So if you can cash in now before that actually happens, you can get him really low, because once Mike is gone, then I do think his value rises. Another thing is that the connection with Justin Herbert is good. It's there. It's early. It's early right now in his rookie year. You saw him work already. He finished wide receiver 55 this past year. Joshua Palmer. So if that connection continues to grow, once Mike is gone in the offseason and during the training camp, it's going to be like that, where he can be at least in the top 30, top 25 guys, because Justin Herbert can make him fantasy relevant. He will be fantasy relevant. And let's look at one of his best games when Mike Williams had COVID. You saw him getting the opportunity. He caught 5 out of 6 targets for 43 yards and a touchdown, over 15 fantasy points. There was also a game, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was week 14 or 13 against my beloved Giants, where he caught a touchdown and it was a quick out route, and he just burned the guy. That's how fast he is. He burned the guy and he scored a touchdown. He had about over 15, 17 fantasy points as well in that game. Another crazy thing is his age. He's only 22 years old. He's young. He's a guy that I'm not worried about. Even if Mike Williams does get re-signed for a year or two, he's still there. He let him wait a year or two. Let that connection still build, because once he's gone, Mike Williams, Josh Palmer is going to be the next guy to come up and take the opportunities and get those targets. We saw a glimmer of hope with what Mike Williams can do early in the season, then it fell off. That could be Josh Palmer. Well, I hope the fall off is not Josh Palmer, but those targets that we saw early in the year could be him. Okay. Yep. And for me, I don't think this is the right price. I looked at Keep Trade Cut was a great crowd source, like Zach always says. Apparently, you can get a late second round for him right now. I think that's crazy. I think that's way too much. And I personally wouldn't be paying, if I'm paying to get Josh Palmer, I wouldn't be paying a 2022 second. For me, at best, I'll do a third, maybe even a fourth. I'm probably lowballing him. He's probably still on waiver wires out there, in my personal opinion. So I think you should go check it out, see the opportunity, watch the film. Go watch the Giants game when the Chargers play the Giants. He had some good work, and against Houston. So I think he's a good stash away right now. Once again, it's either going to happen next year or the year after if Mike does re-sign for a year. I think he's a good guy to get.
Yeah, I like it. And let's keep in mind, you're not paying a king's ransom for any of these players. And hopefully you already have them on your team if you're watching this, so you can keep them. You can just stash them. You're not going to trade them and not get proper value back in return. So all these players, we don't think any of them really are going to be superstars, but they all could be very fantasy relevant, valuable players for Dynasty purposes. So let us know in the comments below. You got any questions?
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.